I'm here at First United Methodist Church in our sanctuary, and there aren't any Easter lilies. There's no choir. There aren't any kids. There's no crowd all squashed in together. It doesn't really feel much like Easter. You know, we celebrate Easter as if it were a remembrance of a past event. But the early church celebrated the resurrection of Jesus every single time they gathered. So Easter is still happening. But if not here, where? Is Easter here? Sure. Part of the good news of Jesus being raised from the dead is that we can know life after death also. Did you listen to the words of that first hymn that we sang? Ours the cross, ours the grave, the cross, the skies. That's a proclamation that in Jesus being raised from the dead, we can know life after death too. In Orthodox iconography, Jesus' resurrection is always portrayed with him reaching out and grabbing other people and pulling them out of death. But the good news of Easter, that proclamation, Christ is risen indeed, alleluia, is good news not just for the end of our life, but for all of our life. Easter is happening, and not only here. Okay, I'm back at my house. Easter happens here too, but not just in my house, in your house. The whole point of Easter is that Jesus isn't over. His story isn't over. His way of loving isn't over. Powerful people tried to stop him, but God's love couldn't be stopped. Jesus died, yes, but then he was raised. God's radical, inclusive, life-changing, world-altering love couldn't be stopped. It can't be stopped. At First United Methodist Church, we say that we love boldly because a better world is possible. We might be sheltering in place, but we are not hunkered down. We might not be able to go out, but we are still following Jesus. Our church made hundreds of masks for the medical staff of the night ministry to have on reserve. The night ministry is an organization that serves the homeless on the streets of Chicago. And now we're making hundreds and hundreds of sandwiches. Those who can are running errands for those who need to stay home, and those who need to stay home are making calls and sending notes. Some in our church are making meals for the PADS ministry for the homeless in our own community, and many are generously supporting emergency assistance for right here in Arlington Heights, Palatine, and Wheeling. Too long, we've let the church building contain our ministry. We've thought that what was most important was to get people in the doors, to get them to come to worship or to a midweek program. Now, invitation and hospitality are important, but loving boldly is so much more than just inviting others to church. It's about sharing and showing the love of God wherever people are. We know that what marks us as disciples is not what we say we believe, but about how we love. We can't go to church, but we can still be the church. Because Christ is not contained by the church building, and he is not contained by the grave. The risen Christ empowers us to serve our community in big, bold ways and to serve our neighbor in simple, small ways. And the risen Christ calls on us to address the root causes of societal suffering, to take on the powers of the world, to dare to address racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia, to talk about climate change and corporate greed. Because if God can raise Jesus from the dead, if God can take the worst thing that they could do to Jesus and transform it into a moment of victory for all creation, then God can take what is broken in us and in our society and make a better world. We can participate in God's love in the world because it continues. We can love boldly because a better world is possible. Jim Friedrich said that Easter isn't something we remember. It's something we live and breathe. Imagine that. Easter isn't something we remember. It's something we live and breathe. And not just in the warm light of day. Easter happens here, in the middle of the night, when you can't sleep because you're worried about your job or your marriage or your kids. Easter happens here, when you're certain that your life is ruined, when you can barely admit to yourself, not to mention another person, what you've done. Because resurrection means that the worst thing that's ever happened to us, or the worst thing that we've ever done, doesn't have the last word. It doesn't have to be the end. God gives us an and. This awful thing that has happened, and something new came out of it. We've done something awful, and we got a fresh start. Which doesn't mean that your life will go back to what it was. It might be different, but it won't be destroyed. Resurrection doesn't undo the pain. It doesn't wipe it away. Resurrection isn't an escape. It's a transformation. When Jesus appeared to his disciples, he still had the marks of crucifixion on him. Becoming a new creation doesn't erase our past. We do not lose our wounds. There might always be a before and an after, just as there was for Jesus. But the after might just be something beautiful.